Noah Lyles is the reigning world champion in the 200-meter dash and the fastest American ever in that event. He's perhaps the most exciting sprinter that we've ever seen on a track, at least this side of Usain Bolt, and he has the talent to back it up. But when he turned professional, signing with Adidas right out of high school, it was his brother, Josephus, who was sitting right there next to him, signing his own pro contract. Whichever way you look at it, Josephus Lyles was a track and field phenom, who was one of America's best young talents, even without his older brother leading the way. But the shadow of Noah's success keeps us from realizing just how good Josephus actually is. The truth is that he could have been an NCAA All-American, and there's absolutely no shame in that. But he's also all of the proof that anyone should ever need, that going pro in track and field is harder than anyone could ever realize. And this is why. Because nobody really knows the story of Josephus Lyles, because his brother has been dominating the headlines. They both attended T.C. Williams High School, which is in the state of Virginia, which coincidentally is the same high school that Remember the Titans was based off of. And although Noah is almost exactly a year older on the calendar, they seem to have started school at about the same time. So they completed their high school careers side by side, both in the classroom and on the track, graduating in 2016 together. And by the time he was a high school senior, Josephus was clearly one of the greatest high school sprint prospects in all of America. But I also have to point out that there is a big difference between being one of the top 10 sprinters in the nation and actually being number one. That is the difference we witnessed between Noah and Josephus. Because while Noah was leading the nation in the 100 and the 200, Josephus was actually ranked 7th overall in the 200-meter dash, running 20.73 to claim that title, a time that would win him a state championship almost anywhere in America. But his brother was on the same team. Yet in the 400, he did something even his brother didn't do. He was 3rd in the nation, behind only Michael Norman and Tyrese Cooper. He broke 46 in high school, which is a very big deal. And Michael Norman is a world champion in the 400-meter dash. So that requires no further explanation. I gotta give him a pass on that. And even Tyrese Cooper, who was in 9th grade at the time, was top 5 all time in the 400-meter dash for athletes under 18. We don't talk about him anymore because things didn't go so well after that. But that's another video for another time. But we know what Norman has become. So the real question is, why didn't Josephus follow suit? The simple answer is Michael Norman went to college. He ran 2 full seasons at USC. He made the NCAA as a freshman, both indoors and outdoors. And even though he didn't win it all, at that time, he was competitive in every race that he entered. Keep in mind, college athletes run a whole lot of races, way more than pros do. And they do it week in to week out, from January basically to June. Josephus originally committed to run for the Florida Gators, but when his brother chose to go pro after the Olympic trials, he chose to follow him on that path. And from that point, professional track fans really haven't heard much from Josephus after that. It's not that he wasn't on the track, it's just that we weren't paying attention. So what would have happened if he actually went to Florida in the first place? And that's even without his brother, because that would have changed the course of history, both for him and the NCAA. Using the times he ran as a pro from 2017 up until now, we basically have an idea of how his college career would have turned out. And what he really needed, like most high-level high school recruits, was just a little bit more time to develop into the sprinter he was capable of. As a freshman, he could have run as fast as 45:30 in the 400 outdoors, a time that would have ranked him 10th overall in the NCAA. Fred Curley was actually the champion that year, back when we all thought he was a 400 runner. But for the record, 10th in the nation is borderline All-American status. It's not bad at all for a freshman. It's actually really good. And he would have made the SEC Conference Finals, adding more points to a team that was already stacked as is. But Josephus ran faster in 2018, going 45.09. But ironically, that time would have actually ranked him worse in the NCAA. That's the same year that Michael Norman owned the 400 at the NCAAs. And for the record, I didn't even bring up the 200, because up until this point, Josephus hadn't been running times that would have done a whole lot at the NCAA level. If nothing changed as a junior, he likely would have made the NCAAs once again. But his 200s were beginning to catch up, because he ran 20.40, which likely would have gotten him into the NCAAs now, in both events. What would have been Josephus' senior year was 2020, a year where there was no outdoor or indoor NCAA championships, and we all know why. But the races he did run that year make it clear he would have been a threat to win the SEC championship, indoors in the 200. So 2021 outdoors could have been his senior season for the Florida Gators, saving his best for last. That is the year when Josephus came into his own as a sprinter, running the 100 and the 200 instead of the 4. His 100s were fast, but not NCAA championship level. But it doesn't matter, because his 200 dropped all the way down to 20.03. That's wind legal, in a time that would have ranked him 3rd in the NCAA, ahead of Joseph Lyles and Matthew Boland. He'd also become an All-American and a medalist at the NCAAs. But to be clear, Josephus likely would have been better than everything I just mentioned, because the pressure of making it as a pro would have been lifted off of him. And running fast times gets a whole lot easier when you have access to good coaching, a whole lot of races to figure it out, and even unlimited food to eat in a college dining hall. The only time a professional sprinter is ever really recognized in America is if you win a Diamond League event, you make Team USA for the Olympics or the Worlds, or at either of those events, you make the final once you're there. Josephus hasn't done any of that to this point, but I'm here to argue that if he went to college, that probably could have changed, because in 2022, he broke the 20-second barrier, going 19.93 in the 200 and making the finals of the USA Championships. He finished 5th in the race, and that means he was right on schedule for what a first-year pro actually should look like. But that's after a full college career. The expectations for Josephus have been very clear since he signed with Adidas. He's supposed to be just as good as his older brother, but that is unfair to him, and it sets us all up for disappointment. Josephus Lyles is actually right on schedule for what his talent always showed us he could become. He was an amazing young sprinter who needed time to work out the kinks to become a world-class talent. He could have taken that time in college, but he chose to go a different route, a much harder route, and there's no shame in that, because his career isn't over. In fact, it is just beginning. The funny thing is, had he actually gone to college in the first place, the track and field world would already understand that. I'm Coach Rob, and thank you so much for watching this video. And if you want to see more content like this, then please like and subscribe.